Assalamu alaikum, dear student. Today we are going to discuss what was the Miller-Urey experiment. So, it was once believed that if you left food out of rot, living creatures like maggot and even rats would simply proof into existence. The idea was called the spontaneous generation. A series of experiments starting in the 1600s disproved this idea, and in the 1800s, a new scientific law was proposed. Life only came from the life. It's true that rat, maggots, and even microbes are far too complex to simply poof into the existence. But in the 1859, English naturalist Charles Darwin put forth the theory of evolution. In it, he showed that under the right circumstances, relatively simple creatures can gradually give rise to more complex creatures. Given this information, serious thinkers began to wonder, is this possible that simple life form actually would come from non-living matters? Not by proofing into existence, but through a natural gradual process similar to what we see in biological evolution. Charles Darwin himself mentioned this idea when writing to a friend, but if and what a big if. He wrote, we could conceive in some warm little pond with all sort of ammonia and phosphoric salt, light heat, electricity and on present. That a protein compound was chemically formed readily to undergo still more complex changes. In 1924, Russian biochemist Alexander Oparin published a book which he titled The Origin of Life. In it, he outlined his thought on a gradual progression for simple chemistry to living cell. He imagined the early ocean as a primordial soup, a rich collection of complex biomolecules produced by natural chemical reaction. In this soup, chemical reaction could take place, eventually producing living cell. At the time, Darwin warm little pond and the open primordial soup was really just speculation. They were founded on a good understanding of chemistry and biology, but they could not be considered legitimate scientific hypotheses because no one had found a way to test or observe them. Science, after all, is the study of observable fact and ongoing conversation about how those facts be best linked together. Chemical reactions like those proposed by Darwin and Oparin are not accepted to leave an observable fossil record without ever having fossil to examine or a time machine to travel back and observe what happened. How good. Scientists even begins to study the origin of life. In the 1950s, Stanley Murray, then a graduate student at the University of Chicago, came up with an idea. We can stimulate the early earth condition in the lab and then carefully what happened. If you can't study fish in a sea, set up an aquarium. Working with his professor Harold Urey and Miller design an apparatus to study the ancient water cycle. Together they put in water to the model of ancient ocean. It was recently boiled to mimic evaporation along with the water vapor for gases in the atmosphere. They choose methane, hydrogen, and ammonia. They are simple gases which scientists at the time I thought was probably abundant on the ancient earth. They added a condenser to cool the atmosphere, allowing hot water molecules to from drop and fall back into the oceans like rain. The ancient earth could have had many sources of energy: sunlight, geothermal heat, and even thunderstorms, so they added spark to the atmosphere to stimulate the lightning. The goal of the experiment was not to create life but to simply test the first step in the operant model. Can simple chemistry naturally give rise to the complex molecule of Earth life? After running the experiment for just 1 week, their ocean became brownish black. Careful analysis revealed that through a series of reactions, many complexes molecules had been produced. Among these were amino acid, special molecules of life that were once thought could only be built inside their bodies and living creatures. This provides a pivotal breakthrough in the science, so significant in fact that I gave rise to an entirely new field research not known as a prebiotic chemistry. Scientists don't know for sure if the gases used by the Miller really were the most common gases in the ancient Earth. Because of this, many experiments have since been done showing that the molecule of life can form a wide variety of environment with different starting chemical and different sources of energy. Sugar, lipid, amino acid have been found on meteoroids. This suggests that the molecule of life was forged all through the ancient solar system and may be formed right now in the outer region of the galaxy. Together, these discoveries tell us that operant primordial soup and the Darwin bomb little pond could have an easily existed in one way or another on our ancient planet. So, to sum up things, what was the Miller Urey experiment? The Miller Urey experiment was the first attempt to stimulating the ancient Earth condition. In this case, the ancient Earth water cycle for the purpose of testing the ideas about the origin of life. The Miller-Urey experiment is significant for two main reasons. First, thought it was not a perfect stimulation and the early Earth. It's clearly demonstrated for the first time that the biomolecules can form under ancient Earth-like condition. Second, the experiment took that once were speculation, the idea that the life may have emerged from chemistry and transform a portion of that speculation into the legitimate, testable science.